Coming to you straight from the Rio Grande and beyond. Broadcasting to the four corners of the globe. So grab your seat, your coffee, or your sundowner.
Okay, everybody, here we go.
On point, as always. This is Gloves Off. Gloves Off.
Wherever you call home, we are there. In favorite places. Large spaces. For many homes, we have coverage that fits the way you live. And with our home systems protection, you can cover major home appliances and more. We cover more type of homes than ever. Get the coverage you and your family deserves. For a free no obligation quote, visit us online or simply give us a call.
Back at you in Gloves Off, and today I'm going to be touching base about Laredo, Texas, my hometown. And I did a little research, and if you guys want this research, this study, I will email it to you. Just send me an email at buitronacademy2012@gmail.com, and I'll send you the PDF. There's no secrets. And I'm touching base on what happened to Laredo. You know, geographically speaking, Laredo sits in the frontier of the United States and Mexico. It's the largest inland port. Many claim that it's the largest port, period, in the United States. Yes, we see a lot of transportation, import-export, semi-trucks, trains, carrying loads, going back and forth. Everybody says, oh, we're growing leaps and bounds, yeah, with warehouses and such. But in the last couple of years, I'm just going to tell you what the research says, starting on page 1. Laredo, Texas, once a thriving hub of international trade and economic activity, has experienced a notable decline in the recent years. Several interrelated factors have contributed to this downturn. This is how the study starts. In an article by the Boise Daily News, March 3rd, 2025, it says, Laredo, once a bustling border city, has seen a population decrease of 2.4% over 4 years. This decline is coupled with 3.5 drop in per capita income and nearly 36 decrease in home values. Factors such as economic downturns, limited job diversification has contributed to this trend. Actually, they're on point. I'm going to tell you why. Because Laredo has no manufacturing jobs. Either you're part of the import-export, either you go learn to become a truck driver, forklift operator, work in a warehouse, you're a custodian, cleaning those big warehouses. That's basically the jobs that are offered here. Unless you want to work for a large company like Walmart, Home Depot, those factors are there. You want to be a server, short line cook in one of the major restaurant chains, which are right now dropping left and right. What is actually going on with Laredo? Let me tell you this. I'm from Laredo, left for years, and moved back in 2000. When I moved back in 2000, I moved back because I was going to go open up a restaurant, since I'm an executive chef, as well as a shopping center. I had a little vision of what we're going to do. But that's besides the point. As soon as I got here, everybody was talking about how Laredo was the second fastest growing city next to Las Vegas. I want to read you a little bit of a report of October 21st, 1999. Rapid population growth. Okay? Laredo has enjoyed solid growth throughout the 90s. Laredo's population grew 2.5 times faster than the state, which is 42.4% compared to 17.5%. It created new jobs at a rate twice as fast as a state, which is 41.8% compared to 19.3%. It outspaced the state in terms of growth in per capita income, which was 51.2% compared to 42.2%. Laredo's growth during the 1990s has been fueled by the strong surge of U.S.-Mexican trade, cross-border commerce, and investment. Goes on to say, you all can read this. I'm not saying anything new. We know that the transportation, import-export has grown here. This is, this is in '99. Loaded trucks north and south passing through the Laredo Port of Entry increased 152.2% between 1990 and 1998. Loaded rail cars, same, increased 215.1% between 1990 and 1997. And gross land weight at Laredo's International Airport increased roughly 1,000% between 1990 and 1998. So we grew because of the import-export. Nobody's saying nothing about that. But what happened to this? Okay? What happened to that growth? And I have research after research, and what I'm going to talk about, people, is something occurred that it started declining. I'm going to read you this. In November 21st, 2023, between 2019 and 2022, Laredo experienced a population decrease of 2.4 and 3.5 drop in per capita income. Additionally, home values in the city plummeted to the nearly 36%, and unemployment rates increased. These indicators reflected broader economic challenges and a half-position Laredo among the fastest declining cities in the United States. Okay? Watch this. Listen. Laredo is one of the fastest declining cities in the United States. New reports reveal. This was in 2023. A recent report on the fastest declining cities of the United States include Laredo in the top 20. Coming in at number 18, Laredo was also the second city located in Texas to appear in the top 20, following Corpus Christi at number 12. And people say, what happened? What occurred? What were the challenges? People blame it on local governance, administration, the inner city works of the municipality. Is that for real? I mean, we just had a bond election, a $417 million bond in which 84% of the people voted against it. Imagine that. So there's no faith in the city government. But why? What's going on? Let's continue with that, because that might be the reason why. Here's what it says. While they were talking about the bond, people said that people that were opposed to the bond or against it were against progress. No, they're not against progress. We want Laredo to grow. But what's wrong with Laredo? What's happening to Laredo? Okay, people say we need, we're one of the safest cities. Okay, but I want to tell you why. It's not because of our police department. It's because of our morals, our family values. Many of my generation and the generations afterward grew up with a grandmother in the house, or an older aunt, or a mother that would take care of us when we got home. And those morals were passed on, so we did not have that much delinquency as per se. But now we have a lot of single parent units out there, or families that both parents have to work because they cannot make ends meet. Why? Because everything here is way too expensive. What happens to the kids? They're out in the streets. So things are changing. But why? Let's go back to the point of, it was the second fastest growing city. What occurred? Well, here's a nice little article on Mexico's economy. This was November 29, 2020. Mexico's economy has been battered by the coronavirus pandemic, adding to the existing economic challenges such as widespread poverty. The forecast, a slow, painful recovery. The Mexican economy is expected to shrink by 12% this year and triple the contradiction projected in the United States and grow less than 1% next year, according to Mexico's central bank. 2020 opened the eyes to many and closed a lot of businesses. Everybody was hurting. They're blaming the fact that Mexico's downfall in 2020 and the years afterward was because there was no stimulus. Why? Because most of their exporting comes to us, the United States. Things started changing a little bit there. So that's one factor, right? There's one factor because we here in Laredo rely a lot on what? The tourism from Mexico coming over. We relied plenty of tourism, which everybody always says, tourism coming to Laredo from people throughout Texas and throughout, because they'll go across to Nuevo Laredo for the nightlife. Okay? That was the tourism that we had. We can't sugarcoat it any different. But what actually happened, I'm going to move this just a little bit. On or about on or about 2003, a paramilitary group that was supposed to stop drugs in Mexico turned around and became the enforcers of northern Mexico, Nuevo Laredo, which is bordering Laredo, and all this frontier. And that group was called the Zetas, or Zetas, like they used to call them here. Let me tell you what occurred in those years. In the presence and activities of Los Zetas, a notorious Mexican drug cartel, significantly affected the growth and development of Laredo, Texas, particularly from the mid-2000s onward. Here's a breakdown on how their operations impacted the city and its surrounding region. 1. Public safety and perception of violence. Spilling over violence. Although most cartel-related violence occurred across the border, Nuevo Laredo, not Laredo. Nuevo Laredo's Mexico, Laredo's Texas. Fear of spillover violence affected Laredo. Shootouts, kidnappings, and brutal cartel tactics in Nuevo Laredo created anxiety amongst the residents and deterred tourism and investment. That's the truth. Increased law enforcement presence in response to local, state, and federal law enforcement ramped up operations in Laredo, heightening a sense of militarization which some residents of Laredo found unsettling, which is true. This was going on in the 2000s, early 2000s, early first decade, okay? Now, how about economic impacts? Reduced binational commerce. Laredo depends heavily on trade with Mexico, especially through cross-border shopping, tourism, and freight. Violence and instability on the Mexican side discouraged crossover traffic and made businesses hesitant to invest. That's true. Decline in Mexican shoppers. Many Mexican citizens who once crossed into Laredo for shopping and services stopped coming due to safety concerns of cartel activity in Nuevo Laredo. That is true. There's nothing false to this. It happened. Many of us that live here experienced it. We saw it. But what happens is many administrations, and I'm meaning like city councilmen, people inside the city of Laredo, would deny that these things occurred. Even up to now, they'll deny that there was violence in Nuevo Laredo. It never happened. Many of them will look at you cross-eyed and say, well, what are you talking about? They look at you like a RCA dog. They'll tilt their head, what? But anyway, let's continue going. Real estate and urban development. That also was affected. Halted and slowed development. Fears over safety and investor uncertainty caused slowdowns in real estate and commercial development. I'm talking about the 2000s, okay? And in the first decade. Some projects were canceled or delayed during periods of heightened cartel violence. Shift in demographics. Wealthier families, which is true, from Nuevo Laredo moved permanently to Laredo, Texas to escape violence, increasing demand for housing in safer neighborhoods, and changing the social economic dynamics of Laredo, which is true. They used to call that the exodus here. You had a lot of business owners, because they were being extorted on the Mexican side, moved over here and stayed. Some of them left to San Antonio. They brought their families and left. Why? Because you had that violence over there. Let's continue. Social and cultural effects. Increased anxiety and fear. Stories of extortion, kidnappings, and executions just across the border created a climate of fear that influenced daily life. Okay, government and community response. Border security measures. The U.S. government increased border enforcement, leading to a longer wait times and more scrutiny, which further slowed trade and travel. Community resilience. Despite the threats, many community leaders in Laredo invested in strengthening civic infrastructure, education, and public services to offset the negative image and attract legitimate development. So, with all these things that occurred, you were talking about up to about 2010, that first period, that first decade. While the Zetas cartels primarily operating in the Mexican side, the effects on Laredo, Texas were real and far-reaching. They influenced the city's economic vitality, investment climate, population trend, and public safety strategies. However, Laredo has also shown resilience by adapting to these challenges and continuing its role as a major hub for U.S.-Mexico trade. The trade continued. Everybody knew that. There was a lot of other things that occurred. Now, after the first Trump administration, you have the Zetas is no longer a term. Now it's known as cartels, because there's many right across Mexico. This is a transnational underworld, and they have different groups, and they're right now labeled as what? A terrorist group. Now, with that being said, we know that there was a lot of control of the Zetas in Nuevo Laredo side. We know that there was a lot of police chiefs in Nuevo Laredo side and reporters getting executed. We had one police chief for one day was on the job and he got killed. It's unfortunate, the horrific stories. But yet, how does that affect Laredo? It happened in the Mexican side. Well, all the articles, all the research were all done on this side, which impacts what? Laredo, Texas. Everybody knew about the kidnappings. The newspapers were talking about it. The TV stations were talking about it. And guess what happens? Everybody starts to wonder, is Laredo safe? Should I invest in Laredo? But yet, our own leadership would say it was not even happening. For 8 years, we had an administration that denied human trafficking, that denied that we had an immigration problem, an illegal immigration problem, that denied the violence of Nuevo Laredo, while on Facebook they'll show hanging bodies. Here they'll say that's fake news. We'll hear those stories. Okay? But what happened, and I'm looking at it right now. In 2011, 2011, they came up with the biggest Freudian slip the city has ever admitted. They did an advertisement, which I'll post right here, of a billboard that went from Laredo to Dallas on I-35 that said, Laredo is safe. Really? People would look at that and say, wait a minute, I just read that the Zetas were killing people and getting killed left and right, the drug smuggling, the drug wars that are going on, and you're telling us that Laredo is safe? We're getting newspaper clippings, newspaper articles, that there's missing girls from Nuevo Laredo that from Laredo went to Nuevo Laredo and they disappeared. You have plenty of missing young ladies from Laredo that crossed the border and disappeared, as well as young men. What's going on? So Laredo's greatest idea, Laredo is safe, billboards came up everywhere. Imagine that. Huge Freudian slip. Imagine that. This billboard was featured on Interstate 35 southbound near Georgetown in Central Texas. And people would say, well, what's happening? Well, at the same time that billboards were going up, you had a reality show called what? Can you see that? Border Town Laredo, where it featured police officers going after drug dealers here in Laredo. And at the same time, people are saying, well, what's wrong, Laredo? I thought it was safe. But yet, when you talk to the municipality of Laredo, when you talk to city council members of Laredo, especially those in the past administration, they will deny that violence ever existed. So people might say, Paul, you're talking blowing wind here. We know this is going on. Now we know because, number one, now the cartels are now a terrorist organization. We have great numbers of mass migration. We do have child trafficking. Now everything's out in the open. Well, before everything was being hushed up. Well, that violence of the Zetas and what was caused in Nuevo Laredo affected Laredo here. As one professor stated, Texas and Mexico are tied at the hip. Now, can Laredo pass on? Can Laredo move forward? You see, folks, when you identify a problem and you know what the problem is, you can correct it and move forward. When you deny the problem and you don't want to accept that the problem exists, you can't grow. So for right now, Laredo, after the bond election, they understand that citizens of Laredo do not trust their local government. Why? Because all the denial and all the bad judgments and all the nefarious, apparent-looking decisions have cost many their jobs. Now they're blaming the tariffs of Donald Trump for the reason why Laredo's decreasing. That has nothing to do with it. The reason Laredo's going down is because of the history Laredo's had in the first decade of this century. And that was drug wars in Nuevo Laredo. That those bad elements transferred over to Laredo. We were the ones that took the hit for that. So tourism, people didn't want to come down because they were afraid. One of the businesses that I had was a hunting operation. Our land was in Zavala County, and we leased out other parcels of land in other counties. But my office was here in Laredo. People would call being afraid of coming down here because of everything that was going on, especially between 2006 and 2010. So yes, it affected plenty. People wouldn't want to come down here to do a tournament, or whether it was a boxing smoker or amateur boxing smoker or amateur martial arts tournament in which we used to host. Why? Because they were afraid of coming down. Why? Because of the violence that was advertised through newspapers, magazines, TV stations outside of Laredo. Right now is a crucial point. And the crucial point is the spillage of the cartels has really hurt Laredo to a point that it's decreasing now. So what's Laredo going to do about it? Or what are we going to do about it? Number one, we have to hold our elected officials accountable, and for them to understand that this crisis was the reason why we went down, and try to fix it into a betterment. But don't tell me that the reason Laredo's safe is because the police of Laredo. No, Laredo is safe because of the family values that we were all brought up in. And those will change in the near future. I'm going to tell you why. Because a lot of those older generations, they're dying away. And the newer generations have not kept up with the same family values. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. I want to thank you all for watching. Remember, if you want this little research, send me an email, buitronacademy2012@gmail.com, and I'll send it to you. Until next time, much peace.
So when I was working on Selena, the series for Netflix, to play the role of Abraham Quintanilla, I put on a specific amount of weight, which I was fine doing, but also realizing it could be difficult to get that weight off. I got back into my physical regimen with James Leha, but I was still having trouble with just those last amounts. And that's when I got to meet Arturo from Laredo Medical Weight Loss Clinic. And just the products that he gave me kind of put me over the edge. I feel great about myself.